Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Modern Warfare in Depth. In today's episode, we're reviewing the SA87 light machine gun. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm here in my life right now because this is, according to the community, the worst weapon in Modern Warfare. It's bottom of the barrel. It's where you go when you want to commit suicide. But I think it's not quite that bad. The SA87 is not a good gun. It's definitely not. In no way am I ever going to say it's good. However, it isn't as bad as players make it out to be. This one is at least remotely playable compared to some other weapons. The hardest thing about it is that you don't really get any good attachments until it's a very high level. So your first 4 hours on this gun are going to be a miserable slog of grinding with a useless weapon until you can get those attachments that make it more functional. So let's start off with the stats of the weapon today. It'll deal 34 damage if you hit somebody in the body, and this is chest and lower stomach. It's got one region for that. And at long ranges, it will decrease down to 30 damage, making it a 3-shot kill up close and 4-shot kill at long ranges, and that's close and long in LMG ranges, which we'll get to later in this episode. The unique damage areas are 46 to 42 for the head. There's very little damage drop off there. And when you shoot somebody in the limbs, it'll deal a little bit less damage than a body shot at 31 to 28, or roughly one additional shot to kill at every range. Though interestingly, headshots don't seem to make a difference with this weapon, which I don't really understand, but whatever. It's kind of weird. Just aim for the body, don't worry about the head. It doesn't really matter. Of note, these damage numbers are pretty normal for LMGs, if not a little bit on the higher end. I would have said they're terrible, but all the LMGs got rebalanced recently to deal lower damage than the initial testing that I did, so it's more in line with LMGs now. So overall, the SA87 will get mostly 3-shot kills and up to a pretty good range too, which we'll be talking about very shortly. However, limb hits are not your friend. Shooting somebody in the arms and legs, being a kneecap warrior, which is something I do a lot in Call of Duty, will cause this to be a 4-shot kill weapon, and because of its overall slower rate of fire, that's going to be very bad for your survivability. Let's talk about the 3-shot kill ranges, because these are weird. The base 3-shot kill range is 46 meters, and when you put the super long barrel on it, it only goes up to 48 meters. You get 2 meters of range by putting the longest barrel possible on this weapon, and that doesn't make any sense to me. I have no idea why it was programmed this way, and I believe that the only real benefit you get out of this big barrel is that you get less recoil because the barrel is heavier, but outside of that, I would absolutely never use it. Rate of fire is 600 rounds per minute, which is a little bit on the slow side. LMGs in Call of Duty typically don't fire super fast. This is a little bit subpar for an assault rifle. It's kind of on the lower end of medium for LMGs. It's usable. Just don't think that it's a fast-firing weapon because it's not. Unfortunately, the overall time to kill is a little bit on the slow side, but it's also inconsistent due to limb shots. With 3 shots to kill and at 600 RPM, it's on the lower end of medium-low. But if you start shooting people in the limbs, or if you're missing, or if they're really far away, it can get significantly higher, and I think that inconsistency is one of 2 things that pushes people away from this weapon, the other one being its overall very slow handling properties, which we're about to get into. The SA87, despite kind of looking like an assault rifle, has very slow handling. There's nothing snappy about this gun. There's nothing that's going to be letting you sprint fast or sprint out fast or aim down sights fast or really anything that's going to make it feel good in your hands. It's going to feel like aiming down sights with a tank. So in today's episode, I want to spend a lot of time talking about the various ADS modifying attachments and sprint out modifying attachments so that you can know how to make your SA87 a faster weapon. But first, I wanted to briefly remind you that this episode of In Depth is sponsored by Astro Gaming. This is a nice little montage they filmed of me with literally the exact same cotton candy pink and blue headsets that I wear every single day. They've been sponsoring me all year long, so if you would like to pick up your very own Astro product, be it a headset, a controller, or just an accessory, there's a link down there below in the description that will save you 5% off of everything in the entire store. I'd highly encourage you to click it. Even if you don't really plan to buy anything, just clicking that link makes me a better partner for Astro because click-through rate is part of my deal. So if you want to support me, go check that out. They're fantastic products. They last for, well, I've got some going on a decade now, and I think that most of you will be happy with them. So let's move on and talk about the SA87 ADS and sprint out and handling statistics. I do want to warn you that these are really weird. I measured them many times, and it seems like many of the attachments are either bugged, or they do nothing, or more likely they only work in combination with other attachments. So I'm going to give you the numbers of each attachment in isolation and then talk a little bit about how they work together. The base aim down sights time is 300 milliseconds. It's actually not too bad for LMGs. If you put the 18-inch barrel on there, it's 333. The 25-inch barrel is a colossal 400 milliseconds, which is... it's rough. The 12.1-inch barrel is going to be 300 milliseconds, which doesn't make any sense because that's supposed to be the one that makes your gun faster, but it doesn't do anything. And the tack laser is also 300 milliseconds aiming down sight, so that doesn't seem to do anything either, as far as I can tell. Maybe I was drunk, maybe I measured this wrong, but I've got to try to do literally all of this on stream with the entire community there watching me so I can double check it to make sure that I'm not crazy, and nobody said anything was incorrect throughout the entire testing phase. But that's not all the attachments on the SA87. If you put a 50 round magazine on it and increase your ammo a little bit, it'll go up to 300, and not go up to, my bad, it stays at 300, which doesn't make any sense. The 60 round mag does get a little bit slower at 333, and the close quarters combat stock is really nice at 266. That shaves significant amount of time off of your aim down sights. And the stippled grip tape doesn't seem to do anything for your ADS either at 300 milliseconds, at least not by itself. Now, when I started testing out attachment combinations, I started getting numbers that didn't make any sense because you can boost it more. And the only way I can imagine this is that whatever the changes are so minor, they come out to being less than one single frame in the game. However, when you stack them with other stuff, they turn into multiple frames, which is significant, but it's confusing. So what I did is I kitted the weapon with all of the supposedly ADS minimizing attachments to see how fast I could make it, and it turned into 233 milliseconds, which is only a little bit faster than just that CQB stock. Adding that stock to the gun is probably the best thing you can do. Anything else, you're going to have to add multiples and wait for like the stacking effect to kick in, and it's a little bit inconsistent. Now we got to talk about sprint out times. It's a pretty similar story. The base is 250. The stippled grip tape is actually not bad at all. Like, it didn't do anything for ADS, but for sprint out it made it 200, which is just very nice in my opinion. And then the 5 milliwatt laser is actually less effective than the stippled grip tape, but 5 milliwatt laser tightens up your hip fire as well at 216 milliseconds. When it comes to these, I think it'd probably be safer to pick one or the other. It's not usually a reason to run both of them, especially on an LMG where you shouldn't be sprinting around a lot anyway. So at the end of all of this, you can make the SA87 about as fast and responsive as a regular AK-47. If you put all of these speed attachments on it, you can make it kind of like a slower handling assault rifle, but you've burned up a lot of your slots, and I don't think that's a really ideal way to play Modern Warfare. The recoil on the AKA and the SA-47, I almost said the AKA, SA-87, is very difficult to control and highly vertical. It kicks up, it drags around. It's something that I really struggled with, and I don't think many of you are going to be very happy with this. It has significant flinch as well, so the focus perk may be your friend. But more importantly, since the recoil is highly vertical and the iron sights are kind of bulky, that means it's going to be very difficult to use until you get some optics that you're comfortable with. You will lose your target very easily because the iron sights will kick up and completely cover it. There'll be smoke and flash everywhere. And I found the iron sight SA87 to just be very hard to use, and I don't recommend it. The moment you get a sight you like, you put that on there and use it 100% of the time. Magazine size is 30, but it can be boosted to 50 or 60 with mostly just move speed penalties. The 50 round mag is just the move speed penalty. It doesn't seem to do anything significant to ADS. 60 round mag will minorly impact your ADS and your move speed, but it's not actually that bad. However, I struggle with the overall mobility on this weapon and how fast it handles and does and doesn't do things, so I decided to not use either of those for the majority of this video. I just wanted my weapon to be really fast and easy to handle. Speaking of fast, there is one fast thing it does, which is it reloads pretty fast at 2.77 seconds. For light machine guns, this is actually really fast. Typically those are much slower in this game, but this one also has a much smaller magazine, so that makes sense from a balancing perspective. But if you were comparing this to assault rifles, that would definitely be on the slower side of things. You can actually wall bang with this light machine gun because it has a better wall penetration factor than others. However, the low base damage makes it a little bit harder to do because you're not doing so much on the other side as it used to, but at least your bullets will go through, unlike a lot of, well, weapons and surfaces in this game which couldn't wall bang a piece of paper. So my overall evaluation of this weapon is that the SA87 is a horrible weapon at first. The first maybe 30 to 40 levels are absolutely miserable. After you get good attachments, though, it moves up to like barely tolerable, like the lower end of medium of the pack. Like if you really grind it up, you can make it a lot more usable. Is that worth your time and effort? Almost certainly not, but it is, you know, doable if you use some of those 2xp weapon tokens. You really shouldn't be using the SA87 as any kind of weapon like to do good with. Use this weapon for your camo challenges, and when you're done with your camo challenges, you put it away and you never touch it again. At least I don't plan to touch it again. It wasn't very fun for me to use. I got pretty good gameplay for this in-depth episode, but it was incredibly difficult to do. And personally, out of all the setups I tried, I enjoyed the close quarters combat setup the best. I like the Viper optics because I think it's nice and big and clean. The compensator on the weapon, stippled grip tape so that it will ADS maybe a little bit faster in combination with the stock. And most importantly for the sprint out time, close quarters combat stock boosts my ADS. And then for my fifth attachment, I kind of went back and forth between the short barrel. I know it has a minimal or negligible effect, but it can stack with other things, or just running sleight of hand so I can reload faster. So it's kind of an either or there, whichever one you want. And this won't be a good class, but this will make the SA87 way more usable. It'll be a better class, and I think you can enjoy it that way. Guys, that's all for this in-depth episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.